Hey guys, it's Anasni here with the one and only Robert Englund. If you don't know who that is, then shame on you, because everybody should know who this horror icon is. Hi Robert, how are you doing today? Is the convention treating you well?
It's been great, yeah. This is the third day, and Sunday's sort of like family day. I ran out of my photos of my cartoon characters really early today because I want the kids to know I'm not just a monster.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
That's one thing I really loved is that you do voice work for like superhero cartoons, and you were the Vulture and like
Vulture, and I'm the Riddler on the new Batman, and I was on Spectacular Spider-Man. I just did a couple of weeks ago the Evil Beaver on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
I haven't seen how they've drawn it yet, so I'm curious to see what it looks like. We usually go back twice, to sweeten them up at the end.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the kids love that because I know to their parents and like the older kids, you're definitely the Freddy Krueger. But for the younger kids, it's nice for them to see that you're not just terrifying.
Well, since I've taken the makeup off, I'm still quite busy in horror, but I've aged now, and I find myself doing a lot of the sort of Vincent Price kind of roles. I'm playing evil fathers and mad scientists and the old professor and the old priest, But it's fun. It's fun to still be working in the genre because I feel a certain loyalty to it because it's been so good for me.
Yeah, well, you've got that voice that kind of lends to that typecast.
Well, it's strange because, you can get a smoker's voice or you can get a whiskey voice, but it's a gift. But, when I'm at a convention with someone like Lance Hendrickson, the great Lance Hendrickson, you hear him speak, and now that's a voice.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So let me ask you, I know you mainly did film for the longest time. What's it like going from film to mainly voice acting?
Well, now I'm still doing. I have 2 movies starring roles coming out this year. Fear Clinic with Thomas Dekker from the Sarah Connor Chronicles.
Oh, cool.
And I just did a movie over in England. I starred with Finn Jones from the Game of Thrones and a lovely girl, Emily Barrington, who's now on the new 24 with Kiefer Sutherland. And that may be retitled. They may retitle that to a midnight movie here in the States. But I play the old projectionist who's having his revenge at the midnight movie. But I'm mostly busy still in genre films.
Well, good.
But it's fun to do TV. It's hard though because in TV, you're the new kid on the block. Whenever you guest star, it's hard to get in the rhythm and the tone of the show because the other actors have been doing it so consistently, the regulars.
Yeah.
So it's always a little tricky when you guest star. Cartoons is fun because cartoons, you can show up in your pajamas. It doesn't matter. You can just be a hairball.
Oh, see, that's the job. That's
Yeah.
the job that I want. Just show up in pajamas
Show
and
up
make
in
funny
shorts,
faces.
yeah.
Faces and voices.
Well, I'll tell you the one frustrating thing about working in animation is, and I just did the regulars with Mark Hamill, my old pal Mark Hamill, but there's always some great voice actors there. And the voice actors aren't celebrity voices. They're voice actors. And they're always better than us, And I feel bad that, we're getting a lot of the leads because when I work with those guys, they're always doing such incredible work and they're so funny. And they can, place their voice, in their diaphragm or in their forehead, and they can sound metallic or they can do any accent at, the drop of a hat.
I really admire them because it's like,
they're
how do
so
you
good.
train yourself?
They make good livings, but they're constantly on the go. I think they probably do 2 or 3 jobs a day. They're driving all over LA.
Ooh, you'd be exhausted. Wear your throat out, I bet.
Yeah.
So, okay, I personally am a huge fan from your films. And not just the Freddy films, but also the other horror and genre movies that you've done. You are not just Freddy Krueger, but you're a horror icon.
Well, I have one out that's becoming kind of rising like cream to the surface. It's becoming kind of a cult classic now called Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon. And it's just a terrific, terrific film, and I'm glad that more and more fans are discovering it.
Okay, I have a question. What is your favorite kind of horror film to do? The campy shtick or the more serious, dark horror?
Well, I think, the horror comedy sort of mashup is really a definite subgenre now in horror. And they're fun to do. In fact, I'm off to London in August to do one called Shed of the Dead, I believe, which is a kind of a zombie comedy about people that have their little English gardens and the zombies come out of the ground.
Oh my gosh.
But so I think it's a real respectable genre now. But I I like all kinds of it. I like the old school horror. I like the classic horror. Brian De Palma, early Brian De Palma work. I'm a big fan of. Sisters is one of my favorite horror movies. The original one starring Margot Kidder and William Findlay. Great film. Siamese twins. They creep me out.
It's a classic.
But it's fun to act in all of it. I had to turn down an exorcism movie this year in Istanbul because my schedule conflicted with it. But I really wanted to do that one. I thought that would have really been exciting to work in an exotic location and also do horror at the same time. I've done some horror in Italy and Spain. Things get slow in Hollywood. I can always chase a beautiful girl around a castle.
That sounds like fun. I'm sorry. So, from my mother, she wanted me to ask you this. What's your favorite Freddie role? Because she raised me on Freddy Krueger, which messed me up. I'm dressing up in costumes now, but...
Well, I like my acting in part 4, Freddy's Revenge, I believe, the Rennie Harlan film. I like to watch part 7, Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
I love that one.
That, I think, is the best one. I think part 1 is probably the scariest.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the fan favorite, if we took a vote or a poll, would be part 3, Dream Warriors.
Dream Warriors was really cool, just watching them all kind of get back at you and learn how to fight.
It's also nice that if you watch 3 and 4, it's a double bill because they overlap, the casts.
Yeah, I mean, my personal favorite is always going to be number 1. It's terrifying, great, everyone in it is just perfect.
It's there's something almost storybook about it. When you watch the original King Kong or the original Gone with the Wind or the original Nightmare on Elm Street, there's a kind of accidental perfection of the time that it's not really any gift of ours or talent of ours. It just happened at the right moment, and it captured a moment of time, and it looks right. There's something kind of wholesome about the kids. It's this sort of almost this evil in suburbia that it's really interesting. And Heather is so wonderful. She's sort of a first survivor girl, and so we were able to get a lot of fan girls as well as fan boys because they identify with her. You know.
She became that was kind of a time when there weren't many of the sole survivor female
most of the
characters.
girls then were what we called scream queens.
Yes.
And Heather was really our kind of shining survivor girl for an era.
I think she was one of the few women in that time who kind of made a whole new character.
Well, in all the Freddie movies, the critics tend to forget that I'm always sort of bested by a young woman. They survive and they get the best of Freddie, and I think there's a great kind of woman warrior aspect to that and a nice message of empowerment. Yeah.
As opposed to them just always dying
yes,
or being
although
the strong boyfriend.
The young lady next to me met an untimely death on the ceiling of her bedroom. Amanda Wiss.
Oh, that scene.
Tina.
That scene. No. I still if I hear squeaking or your claws on rails, that still creeps me out to this day.
I know, that was a weird accident. We did it on the set. I was just messing around, and then they realized how effective that would be on film. It's that the nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah, it
concept.
just grates at the back of your you can feel your spine tingling literally. It's terrifying. So you mentioned
every time you move, I feel like grabbing one of these, flicking one of those. I'm sorry.
My friends
I'm
always
sorry,
play with them. Sorry.
My little jester, my little court jester, my little harlequin.
Puddin'. So you mentioned earlier moments about how the first Freddy Krueger movie had that aspect of being the perfect moment picture. Have you ever had any in your other films, small or big moments that really stand out to you as a great part of your career?
Well, I have a great fight scene in a movie called Stay Hungry. I starred in with Jeff Bridges and Sally Field, and it's I really like the fight scene, and at the end I get a pool cue to my groin, but it's real interesting. It's done with flashlights in an abandoned gym. In a gym at night, and it's really an interesting fight scene. In that same movie, I sink a 5-bank pool shot as well, and it's real. It's not digital. I really do it, and I had to do 3 pages of dialogue with Jeff Bridges, and I think I got it on the second take in a master, which is really an accomplishment. So I'm really proud of that moment. That was early in my career. I did a lot of movies in the 70s where I played Southerners and sidekicks and best friends, and that's one of those movies. I think it's one of the earliest films for Arnold Schwarzenegger as well.
He still had his
Yeah.
really thick accent.
Yeah, but no, every once in a while. I mean, I have a lovely scene in a movie I did with Henry Fonda, and my girlfriend was played by a very, very young Susan Sarandon. And I have a
Lucky you.
real sweet scene in that, yeah, that I kind of like. It's very innocent and wonderful. And I got to like not only act with, but I got to share a dressing room with Henry Fonda for 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And after he found out that I'd been a theater actor, he really opened up to me, and he told me great stories about old Hollywood and Betty Davis and Barbara Stanwyck and working on Broadway and rooming with Jimmy Stewart and all sorts of great tales. So now I'm able to pass that kind of Hollywood lore down to another generation.
I would have killed to have been to hear his stories about that era of filmmaking.
Yeah, it was great. He told stories. He said that Barbara Stanwyck was the nicest person in Hollywood, that she knew the name of every single person on the crew and the name of their children and their birthdays and everything else, and that everybody had a crush on her. She was just, he said she was more beautiful in real life than she is on film. That happens, though. I mean, I've worked with actresses that's true of, actresses that we think of as beautiful or sexy, and they're even more incredible in real life, just like there's actresses that are less attractive in real life. No, because the camera loves some people.
Yeah,
it brings an extra dimension to their beauty, and they're actually not quite as attractive in real life. I won't name any, but there's a famous female, rock star, and in real life she's quite disappointing, but on film she's exquisite.
Yeah, I've noticed that even with some of like the local, and you see all the cosplayers dressed up, if you see them on camera or on your computer screen, like their faces look completely different, and it's just the way the camera photographs going from a 3D to a 2D.
Every once in a while when I'm signing, if I'm at a convention or a film festival, I'll see a child, and I always hesitate whether to tell their mom and dad, because I don't want to be like the creepy uncle. But every once in a while you'll see a child where their eyes are set very far apart, and the camera loves that. And you want to tell them, look, she doesn't have to be an actress, she doesn't have to be a singer, she doesn't have to be a model, but you could certainly put her in commercials for a couple of years and pay for her college education, because I know as a director myself, I can tell that, because of her coloring or because of how wide her eyes are set apart, that the camera would just love her. It's just a thing that the camera does. That thing that happens between the lens and the person's face, that it's just this sort of magic that occurs, and photogenic, I guess is the word we're looking for, yeah.
It's neat to learn these little behind-the-scenes tips and tricks about filmmaking, in case I ever get to that point. Well, I definitely want to thank you so much for your time, because this has been a huge pleasure for me as a fan.
Are you Harlequina or Colombina? I know when I studied Commedia with the Comédie Française for a while, and this was one of the characters that we had to do. But I'm trying to think of the female harlequin, if she was named Colombina, I think, in the Italian Commedia.
I
can't
know.
remember what in French maybe she's Harlequina.
I know, it's Harley Quinn, which was based off of Arlequina.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, I think it was Arlequina.
Yeah, Arlequina. All right. Well,
Thank you so much, Robert.